Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I'm Ruth Shelley, President of the Rotary Club of Portland. Welcome to our live weekly membership meeting. As our banner says, Rotary opens opportunities to find solutions for today's challenges. Healing from the pandemic, recovery from the economic downturn, and peace building as we seek racial justice. Today, we turn to door number 2, economic recovery, as we hear from fellow Rotarians about ethical business decision-making during challenging economic times. As Potter Stewart observed, ethics is knowing the difference between what you have a right to do and what is right to do. But first, let's welcome past President and past District Governor, Rotarian Danielle Banks, for our reflection. Danielle?
Thank you. You know, some people dream of worthy accomplishments, while others stay awake and do them. So like Rotarians, isn't it? We each are the power of one. One song can spark a moment, one flower can wake a dream, one tree can start a forest, one bird can herald spring. One smile begins a friendship, one hand clasp lifts a soul. One star can guide a ship at sea, and one word can frame a goal. One vote can change a nation. One sunbeam lights a room. One candle wipes out darkness, and one laugh will conquer gloom. One voice can speak of wisdom, one heart can know it's true. One life can make a difference. You see, it's up to you. Thank you, President Ruth.
Thank you, Danielle, for one inspiring reflection. If any of you would like to give the reflection at an upcoming meeting, please let us know or fill out the link provided in the chat box. And now welcome to any virtual guests, and thank you for tuning in to our weekly meeting. Please introduce yourself in the chat box where you'll find a link to guest registration. We're eager for you to fill it out so that we can stay in touch. And it's hard to believe, but it's our last meeting in August. Happy anniversary to everyone who joined Rotary Club of Portland this month. We alternate each week honoring birthdays and Rotary anniversaries. Please note the names of these anniversary people and reach out to one of them with a call or email, since in-person celebrations continue to be so limited. And also, let me take a moment to wish a happy 4th anniversary to Siobhan, our faithful Rotary staff member, who keeps our spokes turning with grace and efficiency. Let's offer a round of Zoom applause. Thank you, Siobhan. I know you all look forward to the breakout room. We're going to be skipping this week's general breakout because our speakers have included a breakout time into their presentation. So now please welcome Rotarian Nihad Awida to announce this year's golf tournament. Nihad?
Good afternoon, everyone. It's me again. I would like to remind you that our golf event is coming up on September 10th at Langdon Farms. We have space for players, sponsors, and yes, it will be COVID-friendly event, if you want to call it that way. And we are supplying you with driving range, 18 holes of golf, carts, and lunch or dinner, whichever you want to call it. So please join us. It's only $125, and we are looking for sponsors. If you are thinking of sponsoring, it's only $275. Back to you.
Very good. Well, I'll put that on our calendars. Thank you, Nihad. And now on to our program. After our speaker today is finished, if you'd like to ask a question, Maria will moderate the Q&A through the chat box. And Maria is doing a lot today. Please welcome President-elect nominee Rotarian Maria Schell as today's Chair of the Day. Maria?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruth, and good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm going to be wearing multiple hats today, but I'm really looking forward to being the Chair of the Day and getting to share with you about a new idea that has been hatched out of the wonderful Oregon Ethics and Business Committee. And what we are doing today, you are all a part of our very first launch of our Roadshow series. And the reason for our concept of this Roadshow series is we wanted to build upon the momentum and the excitement that many of you feel after leaving our annual event that we have historically held with 300 of you in one room. So stay tuned on how that all unfolds into the future. But what we had wanted to do was to create a dialogue that goes throughout the year around ethics in business. So the purpose for today is to convene us all on this important conversation, to inspire dialogue, and also learn from leaders and peers alike. So what we're going to aim in these roadshows is to discuss topics from ethics in workplace diversity issues to employee retention and satisfaction. And today, we're going to talk about ethics as it relates to the many things related into the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm so excited to launch our first Roadshow series with all 35 of you here today. So thank you so much. And again, I will now kick it over to our program, which will be moderated by the one and only, our past president, Mr. Dick Wingard. Dick, you are still on mute for us, so you are saying something very lovely, but we're missing it.
I misunderstood. I thought the maestro was muting and unmuting us. Anyway, good to be with you here today. I want to give you a quick background on our involvement in Oregon Ethics in Business, which came about in the wake of the Enron scandal back in the early 2000s. When 4 organizations got together to essentially promote and keep ethics and ethical behavior in the forefront rather than just becoming the flavor of the month, because everybody knew that inevitably the Enron thing would go away and it wouldn't be valid as a motive anymore. So the 4 organizations were the Samaritan Counseling Center, Willamette Week, Atkinson University Graduate School, and the Rotary Club of Portland. And we were involved because we felt it truly made it up with the core values of Rotary, the 4-way test. And as time went on, it is now just the Rotary Club of Portland that is shepherding this event, which is a key committee. And committee is almost not a big enough word for what we do in our Rotary Club of Portland. We're very proud of this. And today we are going to have a roadshow. And this is probably the beta test for our roadshow. Maria did a great job of describing it. Essentially what we're doing here is to be a resource, a catalyst, a convener, a place to learn, share, and discuss what are ethical behaviors in business, why do they matter, and just how significant ethical values are to your business. Then we will narrow the focus and we will use a description for this particular discussion, which is making values-based ethical decisions in a time of uncertainty. So we have currently an unprecedented level of uncertainty paired with a rapid flow of information, and I would add misinformation. They both come at the same time, it seems. And businesses are forced to make tough decisions about how to operate in these uncertain times. So those navigating with a clear moral and ethical code, a clear set of values, have a compass for their choices and actions which determine the decisions they make about how they treat their employees and their customers and their stakeholders. So, for instance, applying for a PPP loan to keep employees on the payroll is one decision many business leaders have been faced with. Deciding to apply for, how to utilize, and when or if to apply for forgiveness is based on the company's values, their best plan for the future, and have presented owners with tough considerations and decisions. So we're going to have a real conversation, first with our speaker, our Rotary member, Andrew Rowe. The most important thing you need to know about Andrew is that he and I share the same birthday. The rest of this is just, oh, by the way, but that's really important stuff for you to know. Andrew is an entrepreneurial leader and investor with 40 years of experience building and leading successful companies in healthcare, technology, manufacturing, and professional service sectors. He recently stepped aside as the CEO and now serves as the executive chairman and co-owner of AllMed Healthcare Management, which is a national healthcare services and technology company that partners with leading payers and providers to improve the quality and integrity of healthcare. This is an extremely topical presentation he's going to make because of involvement in that industry. He also was the executive vice president. He was a shareholder and a board member of Cascade General. We now know it as Figure Industrial in Portland. He co-led the acquisition and turnaround of that company. He also spent 10 years at Adept Technology in Silicon Valley. And his early career was in international business and leadership development, including extensive global travel to over 80 countries and several years of overseas assignments. He is fluent in several foreign languages. He also speaks Rotary very fluently, and he speaks ethics very fluently. I would like to introduce Andrew Rowe.
Well, thank you, Dick. Appreciate the introduction, and good afternoon, Rotarians. It's great to see everybody today, and it's really great to be here today and talk about the topic of ethics as it relates to our participation and sponsorship in OEIB. For many years, of course, we've had the pleasure of being participants in this important program in the Portland community, and I think it's a real tribute to Dick and many other people's leadership that we've continued, as Rotarians to be at the forefront of this. In fact, it's pretty easy to see why we would choose to do this, as you related earlier, Dick. Values, the four-way test, our ethics, those are really things that we all hold near and dear to our hearts as Rotarians. Community service, making a difference in the community. And certainly when we were honored last year with the OEIB award, it was a real tribute to our employees and to the people that we've brought together around our business and who are actively supportive of Rotary values as well. In fact, we have a corporate membership and have a couple of other members of my team who are now involved in Rotary. But anyway, as just a little bit more background, Dick, you already mentioned some of this, but our company, AllMed Healthcare Management, we are very mission driven, and our mission is to improve the quality and integrity of healthcare in the face of a healthcare system that is highly fragmented, disjointed, and many would describe as highly dysfunctional. And what we do specifically is we provide clinical decision-making and review services to leading national and regional health insurance and managed care companies. Most of the names you've heard of in health insurance are customers of ours, both here regionally as well as nationally. And what we do is we specifically evaluate the medical necessity and appropriateness of complex procedures and treatments that doctors are requesting for their patients. And to do this, we use a panel of over 300 physician peer reviewers, as we call them, to process hundreds and hundreds of cases per day, where we either authorize or deny care based on the details of each patient's diagnosis, their clinical history, and their requested services, as well as what constitutes the correct clinical criteria for making those decisions. And that is really key. And as you can imagine, this makes us a gatekeeper, and it also puts us in the crosshairs of a lot of people who are trying to get appropriate access to care. And of course, we've all heard, first of all, the stories of people who've been denied care when they felt they deserved it. And second of all, of course, to a large degree, the way insurance processes claims in this country has caused a lot of vilification of the insurance industry and the way health insurance works in general. So you can imagine that we are, as a result of that, right at the crosshairs or the crossroads, if you will, of ethics in clinical decision making. The good news, though, is first of all, we're mission driven. I already mentioned our mission. Integrity is one of our core values. And to back that up, we're accredited by a national standards body and held to very strict guidelines on how to apply evidence-based clinical criteria to making decisions on each case. And we have extensive quality management systems and oversight, and we're subject to spot audits, not only by our clients, but also by our governing body. So there are a lot of controls and safeguards in place, but what I would say is at the end of the day, doing the kind of work we do requires a real commitment, to upholding those values that are encompassed in our mission. Since the advent of COVID-19, there's been a huge change and upheaval in the healthcare industry, as you can imagine. Of course, healthcare is not going away, whereas other businesses, be it airlines, travel and leisure, restaurants, I mean, we hear so many stories of businesses that have struggled and are suffering under COVID. Many organizations forced to shut down. And my wife and I were out for an anniversary dinner last night, actually, and really saw the impact as we were trying to get a reservation to a restaurant to just see how many business owners and of course many Rotarians who've suffered under COVID. Well, the news in healthcare is not quite as catastrophic, but it certainly has been challenging for our organization because what's happened is, particularly in the early days of COVID, as COVID really started to increase, there was a huge impact on acute care settings, hospitals, and other surgical inpatient areas that perform inpatient procedures. And many of those sort of emergent and perhaps discretionary in terms of timing type procedures have been put on the back burner, if not by the healthcare facilities themselves, by patients who are very fearful of going into an acute care setting to get treatment when there's a higher degree of susceptibility to the spread of the virus. Some of that's founded, some of it's not founded, but certainly people, when they go through inpatient hospitalizations in general, as we all know, are more susceptible to infection and things like that. So as a result of that, as it relates to our business actually immediately began to drop off after about the middle of March or so, towards the end of March, and certainly by April, we were seeing a steady stair step downward of our business by about 30%, which, when most companies lose 30% of their volume from one month to the next, it can be pretty catastrophic. The good news is that before we actually saw that drop in business, we did some contingency planning and we came up with sort of worst case, best case, and most likely scenarios. And so we had modeled our business pretty rigorously and decided exactly what steps we could take as an organization in order to respond to the crisis as we saw that evolve. And we're very lucky, actually, because at a 30% drop with the measures that we put in place, we've been able to weather the storm and still, as a result of cost-cutting measures and just holding on to cash and things like that, we were able to still maintain our business at slightly above break-even levels. So we're very lucky and we feel very fortunate to that. At the time that COVID struck, and before we knew exactly what was going to happen, though, we were forced to make a hard decision. In addition to conserving cash by taking out our bank loans and also slowing down on some capital improvement projects, the board and the executive team unanimously decided to cut all of our payroll by 25%. And there's a lot of people who can absorb a 25% pay cut. And it certainly is a heck of a lot better than those people who lost their jobs, the 20 or 30 million Americans who've lost their jobs. But nonetheless, for those people who are at the lower end of the income spectrum, a 25% pay cut makes the difference between them being able to pay their bills, pay their mortgage, and those kinds of things. And so as it relates to ethics, when you make those kinds of decisions as an employer, it's a real challenging situation to have to do that. And so we were forced to make that decision in order to preempt what was a very uncertain situation at the time. But alongside that, we did actually apply for and were granted a payroll protection program loan. And we didn't know if we were going to get the loan, but fortunately we applied very early. As a matter of fact, on the first day that the program opened up, and that allowed us to receive relatively quick approval through our bank. And we were granted a pretty generous loan. And so within 2 weeks of having to cut our employee payrolls, with the use of those proceeds, we were able to reinstate our employee salaries for all of our rank and file workforce, except our executive team. They stayed at a 25% pay cut for a couple of months while we waited to see how the business was stabilizing. But going through those kinds of decisions, I think the most challenging decisions, of course, for any business owner and for leadership in general is, how is this going to affect our stakeholders, and particularly our employees? At our company, we put people first. Culture is really important to us, and our most important assets come and go every day from the business, the people that we employ. And so, when you have that sort of commitment to your employees, anytime you've got to mess with their pay or consider layoffs, those are very, very challenging and difficult decisions. And I'm happy to say that our ownership and as well as our leadership team at our executive company, it's very easy to make decisions around how to prioritize your employees when in fact that's baked into your culture. And in that regard, I don't think that making decisions in the time of COVID is any more difficult than making decisions at any other time, provided you have values-based leadership and you're really committed to the mission of the organization. So that hopefully provides you with a little bit of a perspective on what we faced. The company is solid above break even. We're certainly way below what our plan was for growing the business and even last year's levels. But we're in relatively good shape, and we're pretty grateful, relative to a lot of other industries that have been just, completely upended by the business. And, our strategy as a company is to continue to invest into the future so that as this pandemic passes, we're in a position to emerge stronger. And the way we're doing that is, first of all, we have some employees who are relatively idle in their work as a result of having more time on their hands. We're a production-oriented company, and when production drops, if you keep all your employees, you actually have spare time on your hands. So what we've done is worked on developing a series of special projects for our employees to go work on improving different aspects of our business. And that goes across many different elements of our business, from production and operational improvements, using our lean methodologies. We're a lean company, but it also goes to investments that we're continuing to make in artificial intelligence and software development in order to improve our efficiency and launch new products and services that will expand our growth potential as we come out of this downturn. So I think as it relates to our experience, we're in a very lucky position to be able to do this. But I believe that all business owners, first of all, when the water level on the business drops, they say that it sort of exposes some of your weaknesses, and I think that certainly is true. But how you deal with that in these situations by going after improvements and seeking to catalyze, use those opportunities to catalyze improvements in the business so you can come out stronger, I think is really important. It's certainly something that we're working on. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good kind of an overview of the context for our business, what we do, and where our potential ethical challenges could be, both in the clinical decision making we make every day to put patients first, as well as taking care of our employees and taking care of our customers. Dick, I don't know if you have any questions or if there's a line of thinking you'd like to steer us towards now at this point.
I would like to submit a couple of questions to you that were submitted by the audience. First, I want to clear up the analogy or metaphor that Andrew very politely put in front of you, and I will take it a step further and still be polite. The expression refers to you don't know who's wearing proper swimming attire until the tide goes out. I believe that's what he was after.
Thank you.
There's a question from Kate Ertman. Was the across-the-board payroll cut making, or did your company's leadership and governing body already have an emergency plan in place for an extreme situation like this one?
Well, that's a great question, Kate, and thank you. Actually, so our business used to be require that all employees be in the office, but given the really time-sensitive and very important work that we do for patients, that are waiting to get access to care. Many years ago, we invested millions of dollars in virtualizing our company so that our employees could work remotely. And we did this first and foremost for snow days, but when we had our first case of COVID in the office, and I think it was March 24th, thereabouts, on that day, we were forced to send all of our employees home. And we had a backlog of work from our customers, where patients were waiting for care decisions. And so we were able to switch, turn the switch and send everybody home and not really miss a beat operationally, so we could continue to deliver those care management decisions to our employees. But beyond that, we also have had disaster recovery systems, redundancy in our networks, a lot of infrastructure investments we've made in our network so that we can maintain our services online for patients and our customers who depend upon us. So those things were put in place well in advance. And we do have a disaster recovery plan and, phone trees and communications and things like that we revert to in times when there's an instantaneous failure in our business systems. But for COVID, as I mentioned in my remarks earlier on, we actually did some contingency planning because we weren't sure what was going to happen and how much our business was going to be impacted. And it was really great that we did this. This started a couple of weeks before we actually saw the drop in the business. And we had some executive team meetings and board meetings that led to us approving these contingency plans. And so as the business dropped, it triggered automated responses, which included the pay cuts as we saw the business drop. And there was no need to, sort of scurry around trying to figure out what to do. We already knew what we were going to do, as the situation evolved. And that made it a lot easier for us, to be responsive. And again, 25% pay cuts, that's a tough decision to make. But we looked at it. We also were ready to spin up the work share program, which is offered through the Oregon Department of Employment Services, where the government picks up a percentage of furloughed employees' benefits and pay. But in retrospect, I'm happy we didn't do that because unemployment has, really been upside down here in Oregon, and a lot of our employees would have waited a long time to get their portion of those benefits through the state. So hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm keeping one eye on the clock because we do have to go to breakout sessions. Because I'm the moderator, I'm going to ask this question.
Okay.
By the way, Andrew, it sounds like you built in some circuit breakers there in your business model. Good visioning on your part. But my question is this: during this whole PPP episode, which I've had to follow day to day because I'm in a client advisory role, there were a lot of zigs and zags. There were urban legends. There was everything built into this deal. One of them was sort of a panic response that some people had because it was announced that, remember, it's SBA administrated, that they were going to essentially come get you in the middle of the night if they determined you shouldn't have applied for a PPP loan.
Yeah.
some businesses that just ran in panic from that when a more reasoned response would have been in order. Did you guys have that discussion?
We did. We absolutely did. First, by looking in depth and analyzing the regulations to make sure that we met all of the thresholds and all of the criteria for being eligible for the loan. And then second of all, looking ahead to what would constitute the provisions that would allow the loan to either be forgiven or having to be repaid. And of course, at the time that we applied, which was on day one, we'd sort of teed up our application. A lot of those latter provisions were still up in the air, and in fact, it was a moving target. I mean, the Department of Treasury was trying to figure out, how to do that stuff as they went. But given the information that we had, we were convinced not only that that we qualified, because our only intent for the use of proceeds was really to shore up our employment situation so we didn't have to lay anybody off. And ultimately, we were able to do that because of PPP, but it also allowed us to reinstate full pay for our employees and avoid going through the work share program. So, we're confident that we did the right thing for our employees. Now, having said that, I can tell you, I have lots of other business owner friends who weren't lucky enough to have the analytical horsepower that we have within our company to be able to analyze those rules in time. They were running scared as a result. Many of them ended up not applying on day one, and they got, left out for the first round, and then they had to make more draconian business decisions. And there's been a lot of suffering, despite the fact that money was available, and there's been a lot of business shutdowns, a lot of people that were laid off. And so, I don't want to for a moment say that this program's been perfect for everybody. We were very lucky, though, to be able to navigate through this in a timely fashion. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Andrew. Patsy, give me a thumbs up if this is okay. Could we take one question from the audience, or do we have time? We do. Anybody want to ask a question of Andrew?
I'll go. This is Al. The PPP is, like you say, kind of a moving target. Maybe Dick could answer this question, but my question to business owners on the payback versus the grant approach to the ultimate resolution of PPP is, do you think, and this is an ethical question, do you think there should be a means test as to the payback provision versus the granting of that, the forgiveness of that loan? Which means, let's say a company has a deep treasury, a lot of retained earnings, and doesn't really need the money to make the decisions to keep people on. Is it appropriate or ethical to take those funds from the U.S. Treasury?
Andrew, you want me to go for this?
Sure, go for it, Dick.
I think the regulations, I don't want to get off into the weeds on the PPP because I'm told we don't have 4 hours for the rest of our program, but essentially, Alvin, the regulations are pretty clear. If you had a need for the money, you had an actual need, and you didn't have a source of funds, that's where some people got panicked because they thought they might be able to go to their bank, or maybe not. That I think the regulations are pretty clear on that. If you had a complete open field running in front of you, you could handle this, then you really weren't eligible. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just want to add to what you said a little bit, Dick, here. I think the key thing is payroll protection program. Payroll. It was, of course, companies can have deep treasuries, but as most companies, see their volume drop off, even if they have money in the bank, their first reaction is, okay, well, what expenses can we cut? And for better or for worse in this country, we have a high propensity to look at employment as the first remedy for cutting expenses. Whether or not that's an ethical decision, I think is a great question. I know in our own case, we would have been prepared, to hold on to our employees for some period of time in order to try to keep them, because it takes a long time to recruit and train employees. And when you lose them, going through that cycle is equally expensive. But I can tell you that the PPP made it very easy for us to have, to know that we had a backstop in order to make those decisions. And, these kinds of decisions are different in other cultures. Look at Germany and many of the European countries, social democracies, that have government-sponsored payroll protection programs automatically in place. This was more of a one-of-a-kind thing, and I think it was an aberration by American standards. But nonetheless, I think you do raise a good question about, what is ethical as it relates to, taking taxpayer funds in order to preserve employment. And, I think everybody's got to wrestle with their own decisions in that regard.
Thank you, Andrew. We are now going to go into our breakout sessions. Some of you have wondered how we determine breakout sessions. That is the provenance of Corinne, and she uses a very scientific method. I will tell you that it does involve the use of a dartboard. That's all I can tell you. So we are now going into those breakout sessions, and the questions are posted on the chat. I think you're there. There they are. They've just appeared. I'll read them aloud. During the COVID-19 crisis, what are some of the things that your organization has done well? Are they in alignment with your company's core values? Clear communication and guidance, proactive and caring? And number two, what are the most important things that your organization could do better during this crisis? Better communication and guidance, stronger safety protocols, better, more employee support systems. All right, so now we go into, how long do we have, Patsy, in these breakout sessions? You're muted. 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and then we'll come out and we'll be the better for it. So away we go. Here's your program poll, everybody. So you get to answer your poll. So do the, somebody want to, Corinne or Siobhan want to tell me what, do the poll results pop up here in a minute? Is that the plan?
Yeah, Siobhan will pop them up in just a minute.
All right. Okay. Now, how many minutes do we have in this meeting? 5, 6, something like that. Here's the poll. Here's the poll, everybody. Well, that's pretty impressive. 65% responded quickly, say their organizations responded quickly, addressing and communicating a path forward. That's pretty impressive considering that the rules were changing almost on a daily basis. So kudos to everyone. Patsy, where are you? You there somewhere?
I'm here, yes.
Would you like to interject anything at this point? Patsy's,
No, I just think
Patsy's the force majeure behind all of this. Great job.
it's been quite an undertaking, so I'm glad to see everybody so engaged. I think we've got a few minutes to see if anybody has any additional questions they want to ask, either of you or of the committee. Yeah.
Al, I have a general question. When I joined Rotary 43 years ago, we had an ethics committee. Now we have an ethics event, which is superb and really important. Do we have an ethics committee, and if not, should we, to real time over Zoom, if you will, discuss ethical dilemmas facing our businesses and, opt in or opt out as you see fit?
Well, the Oregon Ethics in Business is a committee of our Rotary Club.
Does it meet monthly, and does it lead ethical dilemma type questions?
Well, part of what we're doing here, Al, and you're seeing it today, is that we're going to start taking this thing on the road, which will have conversations around the Rotary and regular business universe, which our Rotary Club will be aware of and allowed to respond to at any time. But you bring up an interesting question, which I think we're happy to take under advisement. If we could maybe be we are a convener, but maybe we could be a collector for questions and get some responses out there in real time. That's something we can think about. Thank you.
I mean, we got a lot going on right now, including how to deal with protests, violent and peaceful. So there are some topics.
I think we have 4 minutes left, and we have to actually ring the bell and be off TV in 4 minutes. Any other questions at this point? All right, I'm going to turn this back to Maria. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dick, and thank you, everyone. I have been monitoring the chat box. Thank you very much for those of you who raised your hands, but I know that folks actually took their questions back and said they were going to talk about them in their sessions. So I hope everyone enjoyed their breakout sessions for today, and I will hand it over to Ruth.
Thank you, Maria. What a great presentation. Thank you all. Next week, our keynote speaker is to be determined. Please check our website and newsletter to stay tuned. And again, this meeting will be live via Zoom at noon on Tuesday. And so as we close, I want to thank our virtual guest today, Todd Breton from Sugar Land, Texas Rotary Club. Todd, can you give us a wave? Thank you so much for joining us. I love your background.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle, for our reflection. And thank you, Nihad, for leading up the golf tournament again in these unusual times. Maria, we appreciate your speaker introductions. And once again, thank you, Andrew and Dick, for sharing your commitment to upholding ethical values in business. Patsy, Robert, thank you for your work behind the scenes in crafting a really successful presentation. Now, as we enter into a new Rotary Week, please join me in opening the doors of opportunity for healing, for recovery, and for peace building. As Rotarians, we are here to make our world healthier, more sustainable, and with justice for all. Have a good week, everyone, and this meeting is adjourned.